Welcome to a brand new episode of the Bold Take Podcast, the most anticipated episode of the Bold Take Podcast in some time. I'm Austin Wader. You know this man next to me, the man that's you know what he does with them Bears in that top 10 and making some deals. That's the Austin Hill. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's the moment you've been waiting for, the annual Bold Take Podcast NFL mock draft with trades. We got it all. Don't worry. And of course, we're doing it this week. We are, as ESPN is on the background behind me, 77 hours, 27 minutes, and 10 seconds away from the start of the NFL draft. And Austin, when we talked about it last in our NFL offseason recap, this is a draft where number one mostly seems to be in the bag pretty much, especially after some recent stuff. But picks 2 to 32 in this first round really could go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we're kind of starting to get the same data from everybody about where this team at number one in Tennessee, where they want to go. But especially with two and three picks, we thought maybe after number one being settled down, maybe would start to figure themselves out. What I've seen, it looks like these doors are still open for the Giants and for Cleveland. Obviously, everybody else is just going to have to feed off of what happens there. But I've been very, very interested in what I've been reading, researching going into this to make my mock draft. So yeah, I'm with you. I think for sure 2 through 32 is still a wide open book where anything can happen. But even though we're hearing, what seems to be the answer at number one, still with the way this class is, still with everything goes, I'll believe it when I see Cam Ward taking and collecting his Titans jersey. In Green Bay, though it seems extremely likely.
Hey, let's never forget Vontae Mack. Never forget. You want a stunner at number one with a linebacker going to a team? I mean, there's Abdul Carter. There you go.
Yeah.
I guess maybe Cam Ward didn't have people come to his birthday party or something. I'm not sure. But nonetheless, let's get into the mock draft here. Obviously, we're doing the first round only here. If we did a full draft, this would be going for, well, probably till the draft actually starts.
Yeah.
So, nonetheless, here, we both, I'm assuming, have Cam Ward go number one overall. If he doesn't, please tell me. But if you do, let's just, talk about why this would make sense for Tennessee.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is that Will Levis just in his first couple of years has just not been what they expected. Look, he had the big arm, but the struggles he had in college are the same struggles he's struggling with now in the NFL. It's the accuracy, it's the decision making. He really, I won't say that he hasn't matured, but just that decision making process has not evolved at all. He sees the big play and his eyes start to flash and he forces the ball in there and it leads to turnovers. And that led to some of the funniest pictures from each game that of his at the beginning of the season, starting with the hands on his head. While it was a comedy factory and viral image factory, it's not exactly the image you want as a professional football team. And so picking at number one overall, I will say he's been a great sport. He talked about it. He doesn't blame the team for looking at a quarterback number one. He said, job security is earned. And if your team's picking at number one overall, you haven't earned the ability to say, I'm the starting quarterback. And so at least he understands the situation. He's realistic about it. I hope the best for him. He truly, his career is not over. But in the situation the Titans are in, when you have the number one pick and you have a guy like Cam Ward, I think there's a lot of reasons to turn that guy into the number one overall pick in the NFL draft.
Yeah, I think so too. And honestly, with Will Levis, something to keep an eye on. Players get moved all the time during the draft. So I think it's less likely, given that Mason Rudolph is now in Pittsburgh, so he's not there anymore. Had Mason Rudolph still been there, I definitely thought they would try to trade him. But we'll wait and see. I have Cam Ward as well. I'd be lying to you if I didn't make mock drafts where the Steelers somehow traded up from 21 to 1 to get Cam
Yeah.
Ward. Um, I don't know. I don't even want to think about what the show would be if that happened. I'm just going to try not to figure
Yeah.
that out. Not get my hopes up at all. But Cam Ward, I mean, we all fell in love with him at Washington State. At least me and you did at Washington
Yes.
State. And then what he did in Miami this year. Such an athletic guy, can throw the ball with great arm strength. But also another thing I love, he's so calm in the pocket. He's not going to freak out, kind of like we saw some of the turnovers with Will Levis. And I think that's something Tennessee could rely on for it. Now, obviously, wouldn't I be surprised? Abdul Carter is probably the best player in the entire draft up there with Travis Hunter. Obviously, that's the top two right there. So I wouldn't be shocked if they truly do want to go with Will Levis for another year. But to me, I'm with you. It makes too much sense for Cam Ward. Now, number two, the interesting one with the Cleveland Browns. Now, in recent weeks, it's gone down a bit where it's narrowed down to two guys. Number one, Travis Hunter, who has said he wants to be now acknowledged as a wide receiver and corner by Roger Goodell, or Abdul Carter, a guy who prior to the main Cam Ward talk was the projected number one overall pick in this draft. So tough spot for Cleveland. Obviously, we can't rule out Shedeur Sanders. They brought him in for a visit, but we'll wait and see on that. So what do you have Cleveland doing here at number two?
I like Cleveland to go away from quarterback here. I think they'll be more interested in trying to move that number 33 pick to try and move back into the late portion of this first round. Depending on the way quarterbacks shake out, maybe even, if a ton of quarterbacks don't go in this first round, maybe they hold on to it and just take it with that pick. But I like them to use that pick or move that pick to get a quarterback. And so I think the big thing for them is trying to find somebody to build a brand behind, because the move for Deshaun Watson and obviously the bad publicity that's come with it, on and off the field, it's time to find somebody that you can put your faith and put a franchise behind. And while you do have Myles Garrett, he signed this huge contract. Talk about the most polarizing figure in this NFL draft. I think Travis Hunter is the way to go here. This is a guy who is not afraid of the limelight, didn't shy away at Jackson State, didn't shy away at Colorado, won the Heisman. He's not going to shy away in the NFL. He's the right kind of guy to put as the face of your franchise, especially this team not having a lot. They have the opportunity to let this guy play both sides of the ball and let this guy see, is this something that can work in the NFL? I think this is the perfect landing spot for Travis Hunter. I think this is the perfect guy for the Cleveland Browns to get.
Right there with you. And I look at it this way for Travis Hunter for mainly two reasons. Number one, I get you want to do a duo of Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett, but you look at the secondary for the Browns, they could use some reinforcements there. And you have a great pass rusher. Why not have a top two elite secondary player to go along with it? So I think it makes sense. Plus, obviously, like I said, he wants to play both ways in the NFL. I don't know how long that dream will last for him. If he can do it in the NFL, props to him on his conditioning, because that'd
Yeah.
be the craziest thing I'd ever seen. So I don't think Travis Hunter makes sense. When in doubt, if, as I try not to laugh when I say this, Kenny Pickett is the starting quarterback for the Browns this year. It gives him an easy guy to get the ball to, that they can run screens and get some easy plays going for the offense. When in doubt, the run game's not working. So, number three, this is truly an interesting one. The New York Giants here. And let's just say it's pretty much based on the way our draft's gone. It's down to two people. But realistically, they're looking at Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. It felt like it was going to be one of those two. But then the report came last Thursday, or this past Thursday, that the Giants did an exclusive workout with Shedeur Sanders in Colorado. And it's got people thinking, will they go Shedeur Sanders at number three? Obviously, Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, not there for the long haul. It's an interesting situation for the Giants here. Austin, Giants fans, aka Carter Valance, and then want to know, what do you have the Giants doing here at number three?
Well, Carter, I think I have them making the best possible pick they can make here, getting the best overall player in this draft, just coming into the draft. And that's Abdul Carter. You hit the nail right on the head, kind of talking about, the potential for Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, you're not going to have Jameis Winston or Russell Wilson for the next 5 or 6 years, most likely. I won't say anything's impossible. But those signings to me signal, hey, we had a really good defense last year. We've got some veteran quarterbacks on the team that can make things happen. Maybe we can turn this into a playoff team. Let's get a piece that right here, right now, helps push us towards the playoffs. To me, we saw a lot of this with a lot of these teams that were not going to be picking number one and having their pick of the litter of quarterback. They went out and either traded, in the case of the Cleveland Browns, traded for quarterbacks, in the case of the Giants, signed quarterbacks to at least tide them over to get into the next couple rounds, and maybe you develop a guy, or you go into next year and you draft somebody. This quarterback class just not a lot of people fell in love with them, and I not to say that I blame them, but I understand making the move and doing what you think's best for you. I think you get Abdul Carter here, you pair him with another guy who was more slept on coming into the draft as the number 5 pick in Kayvon Thibodeaux, who's really panned out, a guy I thought would really pan out in the NFL and has. This could be an even more lethal New York Giants defense if Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston can really come in and function and lead this offense. This could be a wild card team that makes some noise this season in the New York Giants.
I'm right there with you. And my thinking here, as I have Abdul Carter go number 3 as well, is Daboll and Schoen's jobs are on the line this year.
Yeah.
And I'm not, and I don't mean this in any way to be mean when I say this. If they look back at the Bears with that regime in the final year thinking we need to make a move and trade for a rookie quarterback, it didn't really work out well for them and they ended up. So I think they're going to look this way. It's like, look, we think we can win as long as these quarterbacks don't come in and make mistakes, make the right reads, we'll be fine. We've got a proven defense. Let's add more to it. So I think Abdul Carter makes sense. Now, if Shedeur Sanders falls into the second round, which is a very possible scenario, then I think that's a different story in round 2. But here, so high with a guy that I think many people consider probably the best player in the draft, him or Travis Hunter. I think they would be stupid to pick Shedeur Sanders here at 3. So number 4 now, New England Patriots. This is an interesting one. Mike Vrabel era underway, obviously. Drake May was there now. Obviously, in our mock drafts, we have Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter off the board. Plenty of options for Mike Vrabel to choose from. You could go with the wild card, Ashton Jeanty, and get your Derrick Henry in New England. You could go O-line to protect him. Defensive line. We know how much Mike Vrabel loves defensive line as well. What do the New England Patriots do here to kickstart the Mike Vrabel era?
When I think of Mike Vrabel, I think of building through the trenches. I think of building with those big, mean guys on the front in the offense and in the defense. And I think that's really what this team was lacking last year. You want to keep that franchise quarterback protected. I think you take a big move here and you get Will Campbell out of LSU. I think the best tackle in this draft. And you protect that franchise quarterback who you really committed to after trading away Joe Milton, who some people thought maybe deserved a fair shot at that starting quarterback conversation. You shut down that talk. You let Drake May know this is his show, still his team. I think you get him somebody to protect him. You got Stephon Diggs, a huge asset on the offensive end and the receiving core. Now let's continue to build that offense and protect our quarterback so he can play the full season.
Look at this. I know they've also coveted Tetairoa McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona. But I'm with you. I think Vrabel likes you. Think about the O-line he built in Tennessee. It just makes sense. Armando Membu from Missouri is interesting here, but I think mainly he'll probably play right tackle in the NFL, more of a right tackle. Will Campbell can be your left tackle and protect the blind side for Drake May. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think Will Campbell here at number 4. I think it makes some sense for New England. If they don't go Will Campbell, I expect it to be Armando Membu. I expect them to go tackle with this pick if the board falls like it does. Now, if Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter don't go in the top 3, then they're going to grab them because they'd be dumb not to. So, number 5 now, Jacksonville, who like maybe a week or 2 ago, I thought was a safe pick for a certain guy that I'm sure we'll probably talk about here. But the last couple of days, I have heard they are kind of a wild card team that not many people know what to expect. I think there's plenty to consider. Number 1, Mason Graham, probably the best interior defensive lineman at that defensive tackle spot. I've heard Tyler Warren's name get mentioned in here. Losing Evan Ingram would make some sense. Obviously, questions about Travis Etienne. You could look at Ashton Jeanty. What does Liam Cohen and that company down in Duval do with this 5th pick?
To me, it's no offense to a lot of the analysts out there, but I think the pick is on offense here. This is a defense that has a lot of good pieces, in my opinion. Maybe some help in the secondary. I feel like maybe this is a little high in this draft for secondary after Travis Hunter. I think Will Johnson's going to be great. I love Benjamin Morrison, but Will Johnson didn't quite have the season all around we were expecting, and Benjamin Morrison had the big injury, which could be a big question coming into this draft. So I think that hurts those guys a little bit. But to me, still, you have a defense with a lot of great pieces on it. And this offense, especially still committed to Trevor Lawrence and a team that should be looking to move towards the playoffs. I think you need to make a big upgrade after losing Evan Ingram and trading away Evan Ingram and trading away Christian Kirk. Brian Thomas was great, but he can't be great if he's the only, solid option in that receiving core. I think you go out and you get somebody to help out. I wanted to do Tyler Warren here to really directly fill that tight end need, but I don't know that Warren's, even as great as he is, high enough caliber to go at number 5 here. But a guy I like going number 5, a guy I think is not getting enough talks to look right here is Ted McMillan out of Arizona. That's who I have the
I like
Jacksonville
that.
Jaguars taking here. I think that can be an explosive 1-2 punch at wide receiver with Brian Thomas and Ted McMillan. And it could be the kind of young receiving core that could really help extend Trevor Lawrence's tenure in Jacksonville and kind of institute a shot at this division where the Texans have kind of dropped the ball on building a competitive team or, a team that could really have a stranglehold on this division.
Yeah. So for me, originally, whenever I was doing this, I was 100% with you on the defensive thing, where I was like, I mean, they've got some great guys. They've drafted a lot of guys high defensively. Then I went into the research of where they're at that defensive tackle position. They got Eric Armstead, 31 years old, not a lot of production the last 2 years. You got your next starting one, Davion Hamilton, who, did really virtually nothing last year. So I get it here. And then the one thing I remembered, this new GM, I've already forgot his name. I think Gladstone is his name. Um, what he did, what he learned in his time under Les Snead, as you know, he was an assistant in Los Angeles, is Les Snead always built through the trenches with the Rams. You think about Aaron Donald getting guys in the draft last year, obviously getting skill guys in the second or third round, like they did with Cooper Kupp in the past. So I think skill guy will go second or third round for them, especially with how early it is. But I think Mason Graham, I think it's too hard to pass up here. He's a blue chip player who can be the center of that defense and really completes that defensive line with, Josh Allen on one side, Travon Walker on the other, and then you got Mason Graham in the middle. That's a tough 3-man front right there.
Agreed.
Now, number 6, the team that this man, I have a feeling, might make a move that not many people are seeing here. Let's just address like it is. Las Vegas Raiders. Pete Carroll's there. Chip Kelly's there. They're going to want to run the football. So my question to you, Austin, is it O-line? Is it Ashton Jeanty? Or, as I've heard recently, there's talks of them maybe trading back and looking at corner early, kind of like early to mid first round. What do you have the Vegas Raiders doing here at number 6 that people want to know?
So I don't have them trading here. I have them staying put, but I also don't have them taking Ashton Jeanty, partially because I'm a Bears fan. But also partially, I think, looking at this draft coming into it, you're thinking, oh, maybe 2 or 3 quarterbacks go at the top of this draft. Maybe. But the way I have the draft laying out, Cam Ward's the only quarterback off the board. And there was a lot of hype between a certain quarterback and the city and the front office. And now, sure, there is a bit of a change of guard. And so it's going to depend on what Pete Carroll wants to do. But to me, this could be a big splash to get another franchise player who could be the face. I know this team just got Geno Smith, but if you think Geno Smith is going to be the long-term answer of this team, you're wrong. Pete Carroll likes him. He's had a great career resurgence. But here, I like the Raiders, if no other quarterbacks come off the board, to take Shedeur Sanders at number 6. He's a guy that wants to be in Vegas. He's a guy that Vegas wanted throughout the season. I don't know if things will still stay that way and if the draft is going to go this way. I think Ashton Jeanty is the more likely pick. But to me, Shedeur Sanders makes a lot of sense here for the Las Vegas Raiders. It's a question if they'll go there. I know they paying Gino a lot of money, but I think that this pick could work out and help this team a lot more than going and getting running back Ashton Jeanty. As great as Jeanty is, I think this team needs to figure out what it's doing at quarterback.
I like it. And it makes sense. I mean, he was there for a top 30 visit. Let's remember now. Um, it's interesting with the Raiders, obviously. You mentioned it with Geno Smith. I mean, let's face it, Geno's 34. You don't know how much longer he's going to play. So it's a very valid situation there. However, to me, and this is just my opinion on it, with Pete Carroll coming in as the head coach, obviously now the oldest coach again in the NFL after taking a year off, I don't think he would make a pick for a future quarterback maybe here. I think he would go with something that's more immediate for the offense. Now, that can include multiple guys. Tedero McMillan still on the board. You really have Brock Bowers at tight end. Why not get a wide receiver? That would make sense. But then you factor in Chip Kelly, the offense coordinator. You know how much he likes to run the football too. And there's obviously talk. If they don't pick him, Ashton Jeanty here at 6, Travion Henderson, Quinshawn Judkins, they could probably get him in round 2. So I see that as a likely scenario. But if you have the ability to have Ashton Jeanty in offense where you're running the ball 99% of the time, I think you'd be dumb not to get him. So I got the Raiders getting Ashton Jeanty here at number 6. Number 7, the New York Jets. Austin, a lot of changes. Aaron Glenn coming in there. Who knows about that stuff with what Aaron Rodgers said? I really don't want to get into that.
Yeah,
But nonetheless, there's a lot of options here for the Jets. Tackle. Some people thought could make some sense here. Complete that O line. Corner. We know Aaron Glenn played corner in the NFL for a lot of years. Even a weapon for new quarterback Justin Fields, and there's some guys there. So, what do you have the Jets doing here, number 7?
I think they definitely got some holes they want to fill. But to me, the most prevalent is on this offensive line. There's a lot of problems, a lot of issues there. And now getting Justin Fields and committing this money to him, you need to protect him, keep him safe. Look, we saw some success in Pittsburgh, but something we've seen from Justin Fields, he needs that protection. He's got to have time. He's a great mobile threat, but he needs time to do it, to work through his reads, to make those legs work. I think going out and getting a guy like Kelvin Banks would be a huge addition for the New York Jets to upgrade this offensive line and set them up for the long-term future behind quarterback Justin Fields.
All right. Hey, again, O line makes sense for them. You take a look, I think back to last year with the Jets, and they picked Fashanu from Penn State to be their left tackle of the future. You got Joe Tippmann, John Simpson as your guard. You got Elijah Vera Tucker. If you are not drafting a tackle here, your starting tackle most likely is Chukuma Okorafor, the former Steeler right tackle, who I'll just say it, personal experience, I can tell you, you don't want that man as your starting right tackle. And like I mentioned earlier, there's a guy who has plenty of experience at right tackle here that would complete that O line really in Armando Membu. So I have them going Armando Membu here at number 7, completing that O line. I get going out and getting Tyler Warren, but in order for Justin Fields to get the ball to the weapons, he needs the time to get the ball to the weapons.
Agreed.
And so this way, no matter what, if they move on from Justin Fields after this year or not, we'll see. They have an O line to protect a young quarterback if they do go after one in next year's draft. So we'll see what happens there. Number 8 now, Carolina Panthers, Austin. Let's say like it is with them. Great year given the Sanders last year, I think. To be
Yes.
fair, Bryce Young was getting better. The offense was improving, but the one thing that still is kind of pressing, and they've made obvious, that defense needs a lot of work. They've lost a lot of pieces on that defense. Do you have them going defense here or maybe an offensive weapon?
No, I absolutely have them going defense. Like you said, this is the big glaring issue of this team. Well, I think there's a lot of great options at defensive end. To me, this secondary got ripped to shreds. I think going out and getting a guy like Will Johnson is going to help solidify this team's secondary and make them a kind of, I won't go as far as say no fly zone, but to help solidify that secondary up front. I like Will Johnson here. I definitely think there are a lot of explosive defensive linemen that we have not even talked about yet that could definitely go right here as well. But to me, I like trying to replace some of that help in the secondary. You think about guys like Jeremy Chin that are gone now. So I think this team really could use some help in the secondary, but really everywhere on this defense.
I thought about. I mean, this is obviously a defense pick for me too. Um, but obviously, though, Tyler Warren could be there if you want to go all in for Bryce Young. If you like what you saw at the end of last year, it wouldn't surprise me. But the defense, like we said, has just been so bad. They really can't go wrong with any defensive player here, whether it's on defensive line, pair someone with Derek Brown, secondary. But to me, I think back to when this was truly a great defense. And that's when it was led by an elite linebacker in Luke Kuechly, obviously, who should be a Hall of Famer this year. Totally
Yeah.
random rant. Should be a Pro Football Hall of Famer this year. But back to the draft here. I look back. I think they're going to go linebacker, and I think it's between two guys, Jalen Walker and Jahad Campbell. Now, I think Jahad Campbell as a whole is probably the more ready to play right now. But the explosion and the upside of Jalen Walker, I think is going to cause Carolina to take Jalen Walker here at number 8. It makes sense to me for them to go linebacker, but secondary would not shock me either. They just need defensive help everywhere.
And when you talk about Jalen Walker, you talk about the versatility. A lot of people are describing it as Roquan Smith that can line up at defensive end. And so when you
Yep.
think about being able to slide him down to the outside linebacker or a defensive end spot and then still be able to drop him back in coverage, that versatility with Jalen Walker could really be a huge driving force there too.
I think so. But now let's get to this next one. This is where there's been a lot of intrigue lately, obviously, with the New Orleans Saints here. Listen, the Derek Carr news came out. They have questions about his shoulder. Has people thinking, is this Shador Sanders here? There's also another million different ways they could go here. Nonetheless, it's Kellen Moore's new era. So this is going to be kind of the first pick that sets what he wants to do in New Orleans. What do you have the Saints doing here at pick number 9?
To me, I think that if Carr isn't okay to go, maybe you can get a veteran pickup. Maybe you can get somebody later in this draft. I think quarterback here, whether Shador Sanders was on my board or not, just isn't the right move for New Orleans. I really think Spencer Rattler wasn't horrendous in his couple stints last year. I'd be willing to give him another couple cracks if Derek Carr's not ready to go or can't play this season. To me, the more pressing issue is the retirement of Ryan Ramczyk. And now he hasn't played a ton the last few years, but still losing a guy who's been a big piece on the offensive line and leaving a hole at right tackle to me tells me we got to upgrade this offensive line. Kind of like you were talking about with the Carolina Panthers. When you think about the Saints, just a few years ago, how they were great in those last couple of years with Drew Brees. Drew Brees could throw the ball 20 yards maybe, and this team was still great. That's because they could still run the ball effectively, and they had a great offensive line to do that. Give Brees time to make his throws and create holes for the running back. I think they got to go out and upgrade this offensive line. So I like Armand Membu here out of Missouri to come in and replace Ryan Ramczyk and get this team back into the way they used to be, the way things used to be. Upgrade this offensive line and help protect those quarterbacks and running backs.
I think that's very valid. To me, I like offensive line as well. It makes a lot of sense here for them. Even if you wanted to get something for Spencer Rattler like Tyler Warren here, I think that would make some sense. Um, but obviously, I don't think the Saints are the smartest organization in the world. I think if we're honest with them, they should have blown this up. But they somehow, Austin, keep on getting away with not blowing up this roster.
Yeah.
So I think they can still compete this year, even with a rookie quarterback. So with that being said, I've got them going with Shador Sanders here at number 9. I know it seems a little bit risky for them, and I agree. If the safe pick is to go offensive line. I 100% agree with you. If they were smart, the safe pick would be take tackle, whether it's Membu or Banks, whoever the best one on the board is. I think it makes a lot of sense for either one, but I think they'll end up going with quarterback just because I think they'll look at right now. It truly does come down to, like you said, with Kellen Moore. Does he think he can win with Spencer Rattler? If he can't, then I think they could go with Shedeur Sanders. If he can, they might go with Jackson Dart. Maybe it'd start around 2 or something. We'll wait and see. But number 10, Austin, you've got the board here for your Chicago
Yeah.
Bears at number 10. I don't want to say I think I know where you're going, but I think I know where you're going, so give it to me.
Uh, Look, the board is a little bit rigged. I tried, basically, my mindset coming into these first 10 picks was try to create a realistic situation that I could feasibly justify and have the Bears take Ashton Jeanty at number 10. I think this is a long shot. I think if the Bears get Jeanty, it's going to be more likely that they trade up, which is not outside of the realm of possibility. Um, so it's a matter of how big of a risk they're going to take. But I think I've created a fair situation for this to happen. I've got the Bears taking Ashton Jeanty. Look, if the Bears are picking and Jeanty's on the board, this is the pick. Ben Johnson's offense works best when it has a freak running back in the backfield. Nothing against DeAndre Swift, but Ashton Jeanty would absolutely change the structure of this team and be the perfect fit in this offense. I do like the pick of Mason Graham, who is still on my board. If he ends up here, huge spot to help fill in the middle. But again, to me, Ashton Jeanty's should be number 1 on the Chicago Bears board. And if he ends up there, they're going to take him.
All right, so now pressure is on me here. I can't get you Ashton Jeanty. I'm sorry. But no, looking at yours, that's a very realistic top 10. I think that's a very realistic top 10 so far. Because you think about it, if Ashton Jeanty gets by pick 6, I don't think the Jets would pick him because of Breece Hall. Carolina, I think, wants to get better on defense. And the Saints either are getting quarterback or offensive line. So if Ashton Jeanty gets by pick 6, it makes sense for him to go 10 to Chicago. So I'm with you. It is not an outlandish top 10 at all. I don't think it is. For me, though, oh boy, pressure's on me. How do I screw this up? Let me think here. Looking at my board the way it is, honestly, Ashton Jeanty's gone. Most of my tackles are gone, which I've heard rumored that that's kind of what they want. I think had Mason Graham fallen here, I would have probably ended up picking him here. But there's one guy that sticks out here to me that I think Ben Johnson would be thrilled to get for the offense. And I think it would be a value pick to get him here at number 10. I've got the Bears going Tyler Warren here with tying him from Penn State. My thinking here is you think to Ben Johnson when he was with the Lions. What did he use, obviously, besides running the ball with the line? He used 2 tight end sets a lot in that offense. And you got Cole Kmet, a great, reliable weapon. Now you bring in a guy like Tyler Warren here, who's a vertical threat, like he is, can stretch the field on some play action. And also, again, I think with the Bears, if they can't get Jeanty, I think there's plenty of good running backs in this draft that they can go get. And Ben Johnson can find his guys. So, Austin, I've given you Tyler Warren. Hopefully can help out Caleb Williams and more of that Bears offense.
Hey, I won't complain. I saw Tyler Warren make some of the stupidest catches I've ever seen a tight end make in college football this year. So I would not complain whatsoever with that pick.
All right. Well, now let's get to a team that's going to have a lot of needs to fill. That's San Francisco 49ers. Look, we knew with all the signings that they made over the last couple years and extensions, there was going to be an offseason where they were going to have to lose a lot of pieces. It was this offseason. A lot of pieces on defense. I couldn't name them all, but we already did. What do you have the 49ers doing here at 11? They have a lot of holes to fill, but the good news for them, Robert Saleh being back as their defense coordinator.
Yeah, I think defense is where they've got to go here. They've lost a ton of pieces on defense. And while I think linebacker could make sense to go ahead and try and replace Dre Greenlaw and find somebody to pair better with Fred Warner, this team has drafted incredibly well at linebacker later in drafts. I would like them to hold out for some of these other talents. While the guys at the top of this class are great, there's still some great talents that we're not talking about who won't be guys taken in the first round. And I think that's where the 49ers could really shine there. I think, especially with the way this mock draft is shaken up, defensive line is huge. Defensive tackles where they really need to go. Mason Graham's on the board. The Lord has smiled down on San Francisco. Mason Graham, will be a 49er if it goes this way.
Good Lord. Nick Bosa and Mason Graham on the same old line, and Ohio State and Michigan, man, right there with each other. Oh boy.
Yeah.
That would be a terrifying defensive line. I'm not even gonna lie. If Mason Graham was here, I would 100% agree with that. I also think you look at secondary here too. You lose Hufanga, your safety, who may be considered the kind of the glue guy for that defense, and Charvarius Ward, who, like we've already talked about, again, just a rough situation there. So I think they're going to look secondary. If they already got Nick Bosa there, they still have Fred Warner there. I think you got to look to go get a secondary guy. And to me, the safest secondary pick out of all of them is Will Johnson here. I think
Mhm.
Will Johnson needs to be the pick for them if the board works out like I have it going. It's a zone heavy scheme. I know it's questions to him kind of in man coverage, the arm length, like we always seem to complain about. But the zone heavy scheme that Robert Saleh uses, I think Will Johnson would be perfect for it for the 49ers. And now you got elite play at each level, defensive line, linebacker, and now corner. So that would make sense to me. Now, number 12, we've got America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, who, let's face it, if the Bears or the Raiders don't pick Ashton Jeanty up, they want him. That is clearly known what they want to do. But let's face it, that's not realistic here. There's a lot of different things for Schottenheimer to do for the Cowboys. What do you have the Cowboys doing here at number 12?
Look, there's a lot they can do that would help this team. But I think what they want to do is stick to their stars and develop some of these skill positions, guys who are going to help this team come in and compete for the playoffs. That's where Jerry wants this team is in the playoffs. You make more money when you're in the playoffs. So I think he's going to go for a big skill position guy, but Ashton Genty's not here. What do you do? I think you go with a guy a month ago we weren't talking about being picked in the top 15, and now all of a sudden this guy's getting a lot more hype with the running back depth in this draft class. People are thinking maybe these running backs are starting to creep up. Everybody's bored. And I think you want a Genty, you can't get him, but you really want running back. I like the Cowboys going to Marion Hampton out of North Carolina here to get their running back, solve the problem in the chaos of what their running back room was last year. Get somebody who you can trust to feed the rock, and he's going to be able to get you consistent yards and kind of help stabilize that offense to keep Dak healthier and to help free up opportunities for guys like CeeDee Lamb.
Wow. That'd be a great pickup for him. I think to me though, I think running back, like we said, is so loaded. This running back class is nuts. I'll just say that I think they can go get a guy in round two. So I don't have them, but I think, he spent the last couple draft picks on guys in the trenches, whether it's defensive line or offensive line. To me, this is where you make the splash play for him. And I think it's one of my two receivers here that I have as the main guys. Obviously, I have Tedero McMillan still on the board here, which would make a lot of sense. He's compared to Dez Bryant, is what I've heard some comparisons, which we all know how good he was for the Cowboys. But at the same time, they already got a guy in CeeDee Lamb who's such a great guy, middle of the field, slant routes can be an easy guy to throw to. They need a guy who they can throw over the top. And the guy with that kind of speed is Matthew Golden. I think Matthew Golden's the pick here. You have CD place right across the line of scrimmage, middle of the field. You can have Matthew Golden take the top off and give Dak someone that he can throw the ball deep to whenever CeeDee Lamb's kind of getting double teamed, like we know he probably will for the Cowboys. So I think offensive skill player has to be the move here. I 100% agree with you on that. But I think the running back room here is just so much depth here on the running back, which is just nuts. And not only that, tight end has a lot of depth too.
Yeah.
But number 13 now, the Miami Dolphins. A lot of pressure on the Miami Dolphins this year to have success. So you think about it here. Let's address it. Teron Armstead recently retired. You lose Javon Holland in free agency. There's obviously Jalen Ramsey, which since we've done that episode has now been clear that they are trading him. You basically predicted that a week before it actually happened. So there's a couple of things Miami could go with here. I've even heard possibilities of trading back from Miami. And I want it to be known, this is a draft with trades, and this is just my opinion. I think you'll agree, Austin. I just don't see a lot of teams being aggressive to trade up into the top 12.
Me either. I think teams are going to trade in the bottom half of this first round. When, because at the top, it's like once a team gets to a pick and the really good guys that you like are either probably already gone or the team that's picking is going to take the guy that you want. And so they're not trading out of the spot. And then all those other guys up here in this top 12, it's just like, it's so, pick your poison kind of thing, whatever you want, you can get up here. You probably can get that guy where you're at right now. But here later in this draft, when you start to see, oh, not a lot of quarterbacks have come off this draft, maybe I'll trade into the first round, or maybe I'll trade up a couple spots to get a quarterback, something like that. I think we'll see in the later portion of the draft. But I'm with you. There's not so many guys that are just game changers. Uh, that I think people are going to be willing to or able to trade up and get. I think with some of these guys, if you get the pick and this guy falls into your lap, you're not taking phone calls. You're making phone calls. You're calling that guy and saying, "Welcome to wherever." So I'm with you. But at 13 here, I've got the Dolphins staying put. I think they've got a lot of work to do, and especially like you said, now with Jalen Ramsey wanting to be traded, I don't think you need to worry about trading. Trade Jalen Ramsey and get some more picks. But right here, you need to make a pick, and I think Jalen Ramsey's going to go out the door. Javon Holland is left. Secondary already needed help before this offseason. If you could have had the same secondary you had last year with Holland and Ramsey going into next year, you'd still need help in the secondary. So I like them to go with Jahdae Barron out of Texas to upgrade this secondary and get something going. Xavier Howard let go last year. Jalen Ramsey leaving, Javon Holland. There's a lot of holes on this defense. I think defense is the big need, especially in the secondary. I see them going out and trying to upgrade this secondary.
All right. My picks in the secondary too. I think it makes a lot of sense. But one thing I think you don't see with that team, even with Jalen Ramsey, who's now being traded, you don't see a bona fide leader on that defense. And I think that's something you need to look at here. And to me, I look at the secondary pieces. Who's the best leader available that I have in this? And it's the guy who I think is my favorite defensive player in the draft. That's just my opinion on this. That would be Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia. I really like Malachi Starks here. I think it'd make a ton of sense. He can play in the box if you want him to. And plus, I think he'd just be a great leader from a great defensive presence he was at Georgia. I think he's the perfect guy for them. If not him, I think corner Jahdae Barron makes a lot of sense too. But I like Malachi Starks here. And I love it even more because originally when I did my mock drafts, he somehow kept on going to the Ravens. And I said, I can't let that happen. If him and Kyle Hamilton are paired up as safeties, my team doesn't have a shot at beating the Ravens anytime soon.
Yeah.
Especially with no quarterback. Now let's get to the next one here. 14. This is the Indianapolis Colts here. A team, look, let's just face it. If Tyler Warren's here at 14, they're going to pick Tyler Warren. Maybe even Colston Loveland. So there's a lot that could happen here. But also got Ravitch on the offensive line. There's a multiple things they could go with there on the offense. Even some defensive picks in the secondary too. So what do you have the Indianapolis Colts doing here at 14?
Like you said, if Tyler Warren gets to 14, he will not be on the board for anybody else. He will not make it to 15. And that's what I've got here. He gets to 14 and the Colts take him. This is, to me, this is the easiest pick I've made maybe so far besides the Ashton Jeanty. Warren gets here. Warren is a Colt. It's that simple. The guy's a dynamic playmaker. He's going to help any quarterback, whether it's Anthony Richardson. You take somebody in the second round. You take somebody next year. You sign somebody. Whoever plays quarterback for this team for the next however long, this is going to be a guy that helps stabilize this offense. Look, tight end's a quarterback's best friend, and this guy can do a whole lot more than just play tight end.
Yeah. You want a deep go route down the middle of the field? He's got you. You want to use him in screen plays? He's got you. You want him to block on run plays? He's got you. I mean,
You want him to play Wildcat quarterback. He will.
He can play center. He played center a bit for Penn State too. I see it. But obviously in mine, I have Tyler Warren going to the Bears in mind. So I don't see him being there available for them. Colston Loveland would be the next one who I think in the first round he will go, just maybe not this high. So, with that being said, I've got my first trade of the NFL draft here going at number 14. The Colts are always known to trade down in the draft. If they don't like what they have, they're going to trade down. And I think knowing they can get Colston Loveland a little bit later would make them agree to do this. So, with that being said, I've got them trading with the Seattle Seahawks at pick number 18, coming up to pick 14 here. And Seattle's interesting. Right now, my way I have it set up, Seattle gets 14, Colts get 18 overall, 137 overall, and a third rounder next year, which I think is a pretty solid haul for the Colts to get, just drop back 4 spots. But there's a lot of different ways I could see the Seahawks going here. One, Tannero McMillan is still on my board. He would be a perfect replacement for DK Metcalf. A perfect replacement. I think if he does follow them, he would. However, this is my opinion on a mock draft. And Austin, what did we say about the Seahawks in our offseason recap about Sam Darnold? He needs a good O-line to have success. So with that being said, the Seahawks don't waste any time. They trade up to 14, and they get a guy who, dare I say, is the most versatile lineman in the entire draft, a guy who can play 1 through 5 on the O-line, you name it. I've got them selecting Gray Zabel from North Dakota State on the offensive line. This guy, you name it. He can play tackle, he can play guard, he could be your center. You put him somewhere and make sure you protect Sam Darnold. I get Tannero McMillan would be the other pick for me if it isn't there, but I think you got to get the most versatile lineman, just a guy that you can stick on the O-line and feel comfortable with that spot, no matter if you need him to play due to an injury in another spot. Now, obviously, that's my first trade. I can't wait to see where your first trade is, Austin. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, it's in
Pick
there.
number 15 here is the Atlanta Falcons, who, for the love of everything, draft an edge rusher this year. I beg you. I beg you guys. That's all I got to say, Austin. Do you have the Falcons going edge rusher or trading here?
I have them going edge rusher. Look, this team's been goofing around for the last couple of years. Now, they did get Michael Penix, who's the quarterback of their future, who the guy they're buying into next year. But I think they got to go edge rusher here. We've been saying it for some time now. Go edge rusher. I've got them taking the guy who I think is first-round talent. His personality, his behavior off the field, maybe not so much, but I think the Falcons are willing to brave that storm and hope they get the very best out of him. I've got James Pierce out of Tennessee going right here.
Ooh, I like it. These edge rushers are so close in rankings. You could really put any of them with these teams and it would make some sense. So I like that because obviously I've got the Falcons going wide receiver. No, I've got them going edge rusher. And to me, the one thing that stuck out to me is they just need production there on the edge, someone to go get it. And would you look at it, the guy who also maybe has some personality issues, but led college football in sacks last year. Go get that man. I got them getting Mike Green, the edge from Marshall. Raheem Morris himself and the whole defensive staff was at his pro day at Marshall. So I got them going with him. Just get an edge rusher. Please, I beg you, get an edge rusher. Pick number 16 now, the Arizona Cardinals, a team who's made some good signings, Austin, and a team that me and you have both said we think is on the up and up in the NFL. There's been rumors that they don't have a lot of picks. They wouldn't mind trading out of this spot. So there's a lot of different ways you could go with the Cardinals here. What do you have Arizona doing here at 16?
I like Arizona staying put, and to me, they feel like the kind of team and the kind of front office that's willing to take a more of a risk with a guy who they think is talented enough, but maybe some people aren't sure his presence in the locker room, or they're not sure about will his talent translate because maybe the competition that he played. So I like the Cardinals taking a bigger swing for a guy who has some big upside and getting Mike Green out of Marshall, a guy who could instantly upgrade that defensive line. He'd get a chance to work with a Hall of Famer and Calais Campbell, who they just brought back in. To me, this feels like the make sense pick for the Arizona Cardinals.
All right, I agree. I got them going defensive line here, but Obviously, Mike Green is off the board. And, I think he'd be a good edge rusher. You got to remember, too, they brought in Josh Sweat. Very good guy for them off the edge. Now, what I do see them missing is that defensive tackle position. Because if you got 38, 39-year-old Calais Campbell playing defensive tackle for you, that's a problem. That is a problem and a half. And I think back to this, Austin. You remember Jonathan Gannon was the Eagles defensive coordinator in 2022 when they invested in the gigantic nose tackle freak that is Jordan Davis at pick 13. I think they see a guy here who is just a giant and a half, over 300 pounds. He's such a mean machine. I mean, 6'4, 331. I've got them going Kenneth Grant from Michigan. That's a guy that can be your defensive tackle for the future. And you saw with Jonathan Gannon the success they had on that defensive line. To me, Kenneth Grant would make some sense here. Kind of disappointed because if the Steelers don't go QB in round one, that's who I want. But he would make a ton of sense for the Cardinals. And I think either way, that's going to be a lot of help for the Cardinals on the defensive line. Now, pick 17 is a team that, for the love of everything, could use some help defensively. That's the Cincinnati Bengals, Austin. There's a lot of different ways you can go with the Bengals. Trey Hendrickson in question for a trade any day now. It could happen this weekend. We'll wait and see. But what do you have Cincinnati doing here at pick 17?
Man, the big thing for me is this team needs defense, like you said. And for the love of everything, I really want them to take a guy in the secondary. But with the way it's shaken out, you look at this board and you say, how can we not take this guy? I've got them taking Mykel Williams out of Georgia. Look, they really need help in the secondary. I wanted them to take safety here. But to me, if Mykel Williams is on the board, when you need help everywhere on defense, you get this guy, especially with Trey Hendrickson in question for next year.
It's funny. Last year we had a pick down the line that made no sense for us matching, yet it did. Yeah, here it is again. I'm with you. Mykel Williams, I think, is the pick here. A guy, his arm length is nuts. And I think that's someone, whether it's pass rushing or stopping the run, he's going to help you out on that pass rushing front. The only other one I'd consider was Shamar Stewart. But at the same time, Shamar Stewart has tons of potential, just not a lot of production. And I think Mykel Williams has more production. I think they would lean with him more. So I 100% agree with you. Mykel Williams would be a great fit here. When in doubt, pair him up with Myles Murphy on the defensive line if you do end up trading Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah.
Now, pick 18. This is the Seattle Seahawks for you. For me, this is the Indianapolis Colts. So the Seahawks, we've already pointed it out about, what they could use for it. So, I did. You haven't really. I guess that's my bad.
Yeah.
You haven't, but I said it. The Seahawks have a lot of different needs. What do you have Seattle doing here at pick 18?
Yeah, I kind of went along a similar thought to you, getting a piece at receiver to kind of help fill this team out. Look, they had JSN, they had DK Metcalf, they had Tyler Lockett, and they kind of tore that down a little bit. Still got JSN, now you got Cooper Kupp. I still like adding a third wide receiver and having as many options as possible for Sam Darnold. So I like this team taking Matthew Golden out of Texas, upgrading this receiving core and continuing to strike give Sam Darnold the pieces to make some magic happen. And, he might just do it.
Interesting here. Now, for me, obviously it's the Colts here at pick 18, and Colston Loveland is right there for them to pick. So let's just make this really quick. I do not have them picking Colston Loveland because if this is just stuff I've heard. I have heard Chris Ballard and them are big fans of an offensive tackle by the name of Josh Simmons from Ohio State. You think about it, the offensive line needs a lot of help here. And they think they can maybe get tight end in round 2 with some of the picks they have. Again, this tight end class is nuts. If it was Tyler Warren at 14, like it is in your mock draft, they will pick him. They will pick him. It will not be a discussion. I think it's going to happen if it does. But you think about it, it's like, well, Josh Simmons just tore his ACL. Why would you pick him here? It doesn't make any sense. Let's remember last year, Austin, they picked a guy at 15, Latu, who had serious injury concerns. tons of injury concerns, and they picked him anyway because of his talent. Josh Simmons, before those injuries, was considered up there with Kelvin Banks, Armando Membu. So I think the Colts trade down, get some picks, and they get Josh Simmons at offensive tackle. Now, pick 19 here, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Austin. Look, this team just keeps on bringing pieces back that keep on winning division titles. So, what do you have Tampa Bay trying to figure out here to add to a team that constantly keeps on winning that NFC South?
I think you got to go linebacker here. Look, over the last couple of years, you started to lose it. Devin White, Levante David are gone. The core linebackers from that Super Bowl team. You need somebody in the middle, somebody who can help you out and lead this defense. I've got him taking Jalen Walker here, and kind of like I talked about earlier with Jalen Walker, he's got versatility. He doesn't just have to be your middle of the field, prowl on the field linebacker. He can line up at edge. He can line up at outside linebacker and really make differences in a lot of different ways. I like Jalen Walker to help upgrade this team in pursuit of another division title.
I'm right with you. Linebacker here is the pick. Levante David is 35 years old. He just signed a 1-year deal. It makes a ton of sense to go linebacker here, which is why I would have him going Jalen Walker if he was here. He isn't, so I have him going with a guy who actually I think is a better fit for them as a whole. Just not at this pick, though, because we've got another trade here. I think if the Colts have it like this and they don't pick Josh Simmons, I think Jim Harbaugh sprints up to the Chargers GM and says, we need Colston Loveland. We need him at tight end. We got to get me a Michigan guy on here. So I think the Chargers and Buccaneers make a simple swap. Pretty much you give up 121 overall if you're the Buccaneers or the Chargers, you give up 121 overall, and you give that to Tampa Bay for them to trade back. So with that being said, I've got the Chargers trading up and getting Colston Loveland here at pick 19. Harbaugh recruited him. Plus, let's face it like this. Justin Herbert needs more weapons. So pretty simple. If Kenneth Grant had fallen to the Chargers, I probably would have had him picking him. So, but nonetheless, I've got the Chargers going with Colston Loveland here at 19. Now, let's get into the 20s, Austin. Number 20 is a team that was a surprise team last year. Denver Broncos at pick 20. Obviously, sign Evan Ingram, which was kind of why another reason teams were going tight end here. There's really a lot of different options Denver could go with to kind of help the offense. Also, they could just help make the defense that was one of the best in the NFL even better. So what is Sean Payton and the Broncos getting here at pick 20?
I like attacking, building an even stronger defensive line here, filling in, getting a big beast in the middle of the field, putting him right there at defensive tackle. I like Kenneth Grant out of Michigan here. I would go Omarion Hampton, but I have him going to the Cowboys. So I think, to me, get some help on that defensive line, get a fierce man up the middle in Kenneth Grant, and upgrade that defense and make it even better than it was last year.
Well, you said you took it right out of my mouth. I got Broncos on Marion Hampton. It makes sense. It's a good fit for them. Although, let's not discredit. I know they lost Javonte Williams free agency. Let's not discredit some of the guys they have. Jaleel McLaughlin's not bad. Audric Estime, a mid-round draft pick. Let's not forget about him. But Marion Hampton's there. I think you need to take him at this point because that's really the only weakness you have with picking up Evan Ingram. Maybe you could get more wide receiver depth in round 2 if you wanted to. But to me, I think you got to go Marion Hampton, a halfback. So now, pick 21. It is the Pittsburgh Steelers on the clock, who, Lord knows Aaron Rodgers hasn't announced anything what he's doing. Cornerback is definitely a situation in need for the Steelers, but there's a lot of other positions too. So, Austin, with that being said, there will be no judgment here for you. What do you have the Steelers doing at pick 21?
I don't know if I can believe that first statement, but coming into it, look, if the guy you're heavily courting at quarterback still can't go on national television and tell people whether he's retiring or not because he so desperately wants the NFL news cycle to still be about him, and no one cares anymore, and he knows it. So he keeps trying to just say, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, so people will hypothesize about it. Look, people are done playing around. Everybody's moved past it, and the Steelers should use this pick to move past him. I've got the Steelers taking Jackson Dart here. I think he's the best. I think he's got the most rounded game of quarterbacks left on the board. I'm not going to say he's the most talented, but his skills are a lot more sharpened than just about everybody else. I like Jackson Darty. I like what he did at Ole Miss. I think it'd be a huge upgrade for the Steelers offense that could really use a quarterback that could throw the ball further than 45 yards. They had it in Justin Fields, and then they put him on the bench, and Russell Wilson, well, I'll let you decide what you think about Russell Wilson, but I think Jackson Dart would be a huge upgrade for this Pittsburgh Steelers offense.
It's not bad for me. Now, but I will say this, if the Steelers are going to pick a quarterback here, which they very well can, I would like them to do a little bit later in the first round. So with that being said, I got the Steelers trading back here. I've got them trading back to pick number 31 with the Kansas City Chiefs, moving up to pick 21. As far as the details of that, Steelers are getting the Chiefs' second round pick, which is a big thing, obviously. We'll deal with that whenever that comes to. But they'll get the Chiefs' second round pick, and that'll pretty much be all get. Obviously, swapping the picks here. But the Chiefs look at it this way: the Super Bowl got destroyed on the O line. They need to replace Jawan Taylor sooner than later. And with that being said, I've got them selecting Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas, who has somehow fallen down the board. The Chiefs are always aggressive going up and getting guys whenever they want them. So I think the Chiefs will go up and get Kelvin Banks and get another guy on this O line that hopefully can block the Philadelphia Eagles. Because, I mean, it's possible they could face them in the Super Bowl again.
That's fair.
Now, pick 22. This is where obviously the Chargers would be picking for you, except I have them picking Tampa. I have Tampa Bay picking here at pick 22. But Chargers, we know what they did this year, Austin. They overperformed as teams always do with Jim Harbaugh. What do you see the Chargers doing to kind of add to a team that was a surprise this year?
I like going and taking when we've got a wealth of talent for first round picks at defensive end, replacing Joey Bosa, adding somebody who can learn from Khalil Mack, the future pass rusher of this team. I like them taking Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M here, upgrading this defensive line and getting ready to run it back. Hopefully, another trip to the playoffs.
Oh, not a bad pickup, not a bad pickup at all. For me, I have Tampa Bay here, and let's just say you said it perfectly. I got them selecting Jahad Campbell. Jahad Campbell just makes a ton of sense to me for them. Levante David's on a one-year deal. He's 35. He can learn under Levante David and be that new linebacker for Todd Bowles and them. I think it's a great fit if they do get him, like you said, whenever it was pick 19. Now, next pick is number 23. America's favorite. By America, I mean your favorites. The Green Bay Packers here, the hometown Green Bay Packers for the NFL draft. Look, couple of needs here. Number one, they had so many injuries last year. Depth at any position really could be a plus for them. But you got to wonder, is this the year they draft a wide receiver in the first round? We'll see about it. What do you got Green Bay doing for the hometown fans?
Well, I have the Green Bay Packers pulling a surprise move here and dissolving the franchise and not existing anymore. But in all seriousness, I think they should really attack and address the defensive line as a whole. Look, you're talking about the last couple of years, having to get rid of Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, just really kind of tearing down this defensive line. I like him going up the middle. I know they have Kenny Clark, but I like him going up the middle here and getting Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss and really helping beef up that defensive line.
All right. I think that's a good pick for them. I have them going defense as well, just in the secondary, because I thought they should have gone secondary last year in the NFL draft. Obviously, with me thinking they would go Cooper DeJean. You got Jair Alexander. Besides that, there's question marks. Even Jair Alexander himself's a question mark for his future in Green Bay. And somehow Jahadi Barron has fallen down the board to pick 23 here. So I've got Green Bay taking him from Texas. I think he's a good corner for them. And when in doubt, Jair Alexander does leave. It gives them another guy that they can fill in at that corner position for them. So, yeah, giving them secondary pick here makes a lot of sense. Now, pick 24, we have the Minnesota Vikings here. And Interesting, Austin. Interesting. They have a lot of talent on this roster. They filled a lot of needs. They could use still a couple of pieces, though, to get them over the hump for this next year. What is Minnesota doing at pick 24?
Minnesota's not picking at 24 for me. Look, I've had you guys waiting on the edge of your seats for my first trade. Here it is. Look, like you said, Minnesota addressed a lot of needs. They've built a team that I think they feel pretty comfortable with. Not that they don't want to take anybody in this draft, but look, they have a huge lack of picks in this year's draft and next year's draft. I like them shopping this pick around for maybe a team who wants to trade in here, get a quarterback, especially where I'm at now. Now, after Jackson Dart goes to 21, anybody who might want one of these quarterbacks might start to scramble to get back into the first round and maybe get their hands on a quarterback here. So I like the Cleveland Browns sending off their second round pick this year, number 33, one of their fourth round picks, one of their sixth round picks, and then a fourth and a sixth round pick next year to receive a sixth to receive 24, a sixth this year, and a seventh next year. That gets the Cleveland Browns back on the board and a chance to take their franchise quarterback potentially. And I have them going Jalen Milroe out of Alabama. Look, when I see Jalen Milroe, I feel like not enough people are talking about this, but I see a lot of the same things we saw with Lamar Jackson coming into the NFL draft. He may not have the same statistics, and he may not be quite the athlete that he was, but he's a freak athlete. He's really raw as a passer, though. But his rushing is so great. He's a great athlete. And that's why I have a team trading in to the late first round to get him, just like happened with Lamar Jackson. I think he's a big piece if you're willing to devote some time into making a game plan that fits him and an offense that fits him, and you're willing to work and develop those passing skills. You could turn Jalen Milroe into something special. It worked with Lamar Jackson. I think that's evidence enough for Jalen Milroe to be a first-round pick. I like the Cleveland Browns trading back in here, helping the Vikings out so they can add some draft depth in this year and next year, and they go out and they get a guy who can be a lot less of a problem for their publicity, and maybe go ahead and axe that Deshaun Watson contract in the process.
I also don't have Minnesota picking here. If Jahadae Barron had fallen to them, I think they pick him because secondary may be the only thing that they really don't have a lot of depth in. But he's not here, so I have them trading out of it. And the one thing, Austin, different from yours to mine, you had him go way earlier. Tetairoa McMillan is still on the board for me. So I know there's talks to quarterbacks. I think it'll happen later in this end of this first round. But I think there's teams calling up saying, we want to get a wide receiver that's so strong that you can throw one-on-one and also a great route runner. And that team is a team from the AFC, the New England Patriots, trade up to 24 from 38. Listen to this haul. Vikings get picked 38 overall, 69 overall, and next year, New England Patriots second round pick. That's a great haul for Minnesota to get out of this. They'd be dumb not to take that deal. And I think New England comes up there. They have Stephon Diggs signed. Besides that, they really don't have any other options for the future. So you go out, you get Tetairoa McMillan. They had him in for a top 30 visit. I think it makes sense if Tetairoa McMillan's fallen this far that a team's going to go up and go get him, and I got to be in the New England Patriots for him. But now, pick 25, the Houston Texans on the clock, Austin. Do we even need to say what they need with this draft? They need O-line. Do they get it here at pick 25?
Yes. If I was the GM, they would have done a lot more for this offensive line already, but they haven't. I've got them taking Tyler Booker out of Alabama here. Look, get you a guy that can help you out on the offensive line. I think this is, to me, potentially best available guy right now for you. Go out and get Tyler Booker, upgrade this offensive line, keep CJ Stroud playing a long and happy career.
You see, I would say that, but then the news came out that they signed Cam Robinson very recently. And I think they look at that and I disagree with this philosophy, but I think it's their philosophy that they're going to go with. I think they think about it as we have all these guys for this year. We can go get offensive line in the second round, second or third round. And you look at Tank, you just lost Stephon Diggs. Tank Dell just had a severe knee injury that may potentially be a career alter, career ender. I hope not for him. I hope he stays around. So, with that being said, I think it's kind of like a Joe Burrow situation. They went out, got his star college wide receiver. Who better than to go get CJ Stroud, star wide receiver here, in Emeka Ibuka from Ohio State at pick 25 for the Texans? I think CJ Stroud would be over the moon with that pickup. And if they truly believe that this O line, they can get more assets in round 2 or 3 with the way they've signed guys, I disagree with the strategy. I would also pick Tyler Booker here probably if I was a GM. But to me, I think they're going to end up going with Emeka Ibuka here. So, pick 26 now, Los Angeles Rams. This is a spot where a lot of people have heard rumors Jalen Milroe could be a wild card here. Which, speaking of, I didn't mention whatever happened. Seattle is also a wild card for Jalen Milroe. Those are two teams in the NFC West. Keep an eye out for potentially Jalen Milroe going in this NFL draft. But the Rams, nonetheless, had a first round pick last year for the first time since they selected Jared Goff. 2 years in a row of having a first round pick. I'm not used to this Rams team, Austin. This is going to be something weird to get used to here.
Yeah, it's a lot different. But here I think they need some help on the defense. Jalen Milroe is also off my board. I like them going out and getting Jihad Campbell here to get somebody in the middle of this defense, leading this defense and leading the way. I think they could use some help in that linebacker room, and Jihad Campbell does that perfectly.
Yeah. Like you said, obviously Jalen Walker going there early and Jihad Campbell, two great linebackers. So I think either one's going to be really helpful for them. To me, though, I think they might, if you think about it, you have Puka Nakua and Devontae Adams. And you think about it, those are two guys who are, mid-range, mid or quick screenplay. They don't have a deep long ball guy. And they would have had Tetairoa McMillan have been here. So that being said, I've got them with my final trade of the first round. I've got the Philadelphia Eagles coming up to 26, swapping that with the Rams. Obviously, some extra picks, 161 overall, going to the Rams and the Eagles, who I'll say this, I think either Mikael Williams or Shamar Stewart will be here, which would be funny if it just worked out that the Eagles got another defensive lineman from Georgia. But Shamar Stewart is who I have them picking here, the edge rusher. He's a bit of a wild card because, again, not a lot of production, but so much upside. And I think that's something the Eagles can work with the amount of talent they have on the defensive line still. Having a guy like this with the speed and the agility like him, I think it makes sense to go up and get him before anybody else does. Now, pick 27, the Baltimore Ravens. Really didn't lose a lot. They picked up DeAndre Hopkins. Really looking for some more depth on a team that's just trying to get over the hump, Boston. What do you got them doing here?
Yeah, I've got hold on, my draft decided to backfire here.
The Ravens, there's a lot of different things they could go with here, Austin. You think about secondary could make some sense. Pair someone up with Kyle Hamilton. They could go offensive line. Offensive line would make some sense as well.
Yeah, I've got them going. Sorry, my draft has just completely given up on me, so it's going to take me a second here.
You're good. You're good.
But
Yeah.
we're on the Ravens, right?
Yes, Ravens.
Okay, so with the Ravens, I like the Ravens going and upgrading their defensive line here, and getting a huge addition at edge. A guy I think has first round talent, a guy that teams are going to be talking about moving him into the first round. Here at the late part, I think is where he could come in and surprise some teams. I've got them going with Landon Jackson out of the University of Arkansas here, coming in, making a big difference maker. Obviously, I can't even think of his name right now. Just retired, Michael Pierce.
Yeah, Michael Pierce. Yeah.
Just retired. So needing some help on the defensive line, I like the versatility of Landon Jackson to be able to help them out, and obviously the raw freak athleticism of Landon Jackson.
And you think about it, Kyle Van Noy is 34. Odafe Oweh's on a contract year. It makes sense. So I have them also going edge. I love Landon Jackson. I root for him to be a first rounder on Thursday night. I don't think a team will pick him in the first round. They'll be making a mistake, but I don't think a team will be picking him, unfortunately. I've got the Ravens going with a guy kind of similar to Odafe to pair on the other side of him with Kyle Van Noy getting up there in age. And I'm gonna attempt this last name. Wish me good luck. Donovan Azaraklu from Boston College, the edge rusher there. He's a guy that has a lot of skills, a lot of speed, agility. He fits kind of that Ravens pass rusher mold. And just put him on the other side of Odafe Oweh. Those two together, I think, would be really tough for teams. Unfortunately, that'd be really tough for them. Wouldn't mind the Ravens picking Tyler Shook here. You never know when you need a Lamar Jackson replacement. You never
Yeah.
know. But nonetheless, pick 28 now is the Detroit Lions. Look, most of that main team's back. They lost a couple of pieces. They lost both their coordinators, though. So what is Detroit doing here at pick number 28 to keep this Super Bowl window alive?
I like them adding some pieces on the offensive line to try and help solidify themselves up front. And I like them taking Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. I think this guy could be a huge addition to that gritty Dan Campbell offense. Just another big body to throw onto this team.
Okay. Obviously, I had him going quite a bit earlier. Um, to me, though, I look at it, Kevin Zeitler left in free agency. They need to fill that guard spot. And Tyler Booker is there for the taking. So I've got pretty simple here. Lions are going to take Tyler Booker here, fill him into that slot, and pretty simple, I think. Just keep that O line together. The O line being that strong is what's going to keep this team having success. Now, pick 29, the surprise team of the NFL season, the Washington Commanders here, pick 29. There's a couple of things here that they could go with. What do you got Washington doing to, dare I say, help Jane Daniels on offense or help that defense get some more stops?
I like them upgrading the defense. I think the secondary was obviously an area that they tried to address at the trade deadline, and Marshawn Lattimore just didn't really pan out. Just decided that fistfights in the NFC Championship were better than any NFC Championship trophy could be. And so I think you learn that lesson and you go out and you try and upgrade this secondary a little bit better. I like them getting a guy who's going to be a great leader for them at safety. I like Malachi Starks out of Georgia here becoming a commander and helping them try and make a bit of a stronger push this season in the postseason.
I also have them going safety here. You know, you think about it with Dan Quinn defenses, you know, Cam Chancellor, Keanu Neal. He likes the kind of hybrid guys on those safety positions that he can put in different positions. And I don't have Malachi Starks here, but I got Nick Amanawari from South Carolina. This guy's a weird one. I've heard him go anywhere from the end of the first round to he could go near the early half of the top 15. So it's crazy to me. I don't know where he's going to end up, but I think if he falls here to Washington, it makes some sense at safety position with losing Jeremy Chin, especially because he was a great pickup for them. But this is who I got them going. I agree with you on the safety pick. Now, pick number 30, the team me and you watch live in person, gets so close to that Super Bowl. That'd be the Buffalo Bills. What is Buffalo going to need, Austin, in this first round to hopefully get over the freaking top of this AFC?
I think the wide receiver room would be interesting to see them try and address here. But to me, the more pressing issue is in the secondary at corner. We saw what happened when this team lost its top corners. They need depth at this position. I think they're going to get a guy who maybe won't come in and play right away, but can be crucial for their depth. I like them taking Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame here to help upgrade that secondary. When this guy's healthy, when this guy's playing, he's one of the best. He was the best corner in the entire country. There's no question about it. But missed almost the entire season this season at Notre Dame. Getting him healthy is the number one priority. But once he hits the field, he is going to be a game changer for this Buffalo Bills defense.
Okay. I also have them going into secondary. If you really think about it, like we said, Kyer Elam did not work out. Did not even come close to working out. They re-signed Tre'Davious White, which is fun. Um,
Yes.
yeah, it's very fun for them. You love to see it. But they still need more help in that secondary. Uh, and I had them going with Maxwell Hairston, Bold Take Podcast Player of the Week. If you know, you know. Going in the first round here. Listen, I know that, your man, wow, why I forgot his name, Morrison, Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame is still on the board. Just like I know this corner, Siobhan Revel from East Carolina is on the board. But they are both kind of injury question marks about them. And Buffalo has had to deal with so many injuries in that secondary. I think they're just going to be like, I'm not going to waste my time with an injury prone one. Let's get the best healthy one. And to me, that is, a guy by the name of Maxwell Harrison. So now, pick 31 here. I believe you still have the Chiefs here at pick 31. Me, I've got the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's get out of the way, Austin. What are the Chiefs going to need here at pick 31? You know, Freaking go back to a fourth straight Super Bowl.
Yeah, I like him going offensive line here. Obviously made some sacrifices with the offensive line, if you can call it that, just getting rid of Joe Tooney. But I like them going and addressing that and helping fix that problem. Obviously, Jawan Taylor wasn't very good. Maybe if they can find a replacement for him, I think they do that very, very well with Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Like you talked about, this guy, when he's healthy, is great. I don't think the Chiefs are in any rush. And then once they can get this guy on the field and ready to play, he helps tremendously upgrade this offensive line that was maybe at its most questionable point in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Obviously, I had them going O-line at pick 21. Now, Pittsburgh Steelers on the clock here at pick 31. This is where I like getting a quarterback pick here. Right at the end of the first round, you pick up some extra picks for the second round that you lost courtesy of the DK Metcalf deal. This makes sense to me. Now, I could go with the one I think they'll most likely pick, or I go with the one that I want the most. And I'm going with the one I want the most, and that's Jalen Milrow. Like I said, Lamar Jackson comparisons are there. Dare I say, Austin, even faster than Lamar Jackson, maybe. Guy's just insane. Listen, I know the questions will be he'll be back up for Mason Rudolph for a bit. That's fine. Or if you want to play him right now, that's fine. But I keep on thinking, Austin, and this is just me. I don't know if Mike Tomlin thinks about it. I keep thinking back to 2018. Lamar Jackson's falling down the board, falling down the board, falling down the board. And who's there for the Steelers? Lamar Jackson. They don't pick him. Instead, they pick Terrell Edmonds, a guy who is no longer even on the team. And I just keep on thinking, it's like, man, Mike, you could have had Lamar. And you look at the Steelers offense now, Austin, you saw with Justin Fields, they want to run the football. They want that kind of offense. And no offense to Jackson Dart, who, let's just say, as you know, I'm not a big fan of. Um, I think Jalen Milrow just be the more fun pick. Now, will he take a while? Yes. And Steeler fans, I hope are patient with him. So I've got Jalen Milrow here going 31 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, pick 32, Philadelphia Eagles for you, Austin, the Super Bowl champs. Los Angeles Rams for me. What do you got Philly doing to close out this first round?
I think they're going to go and continue to stack this defensive line. Now that Brandon Graham is retired officially, there's an extra spot for another big body on this defensive line. I like him taking JT Tuimoloau out of Ohio State and just adding another freak, game changer, turnover forcing defensive end to make this team even tougher to beat.
I don't know. I don't blame him. I mean, let's remember Super Bowl, Austin. They got pressure on Mahomes with zero blitzes. They did not blitz. That front four got home. So getting more depth for it, why not? You destroyed one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. They keep on building that sucker up. But I had them going up and getting a guy at pick 26. So I had the Rams here, picking a guy that I think just makes sense. They need secondary help. They got linebacker and defensive line help. Now you address it in the secondary. And with that being said, I've got Trey Amos from Ole Miss going here. He's been a guy that's been mocked to them a lot in 26. So I think they could trade back, get a couple of picks, and still end up with the guy they want at 26 all the way back at 32 here. But that is, ladies and gentlemen, our 2025 NFL mock drafts for round one. Let us know in the comments, what did you think of them? Were some of our picks dumb? Did you like the pick we gave your team? You don't? Tell us who you wanted. There's a lot of different ways, but Austin, NFL draft week is here. I'm watching draft day tomorrow night to prepare for it. Beyond excited for what the NFL draft's going to provide us. Again, the most wide open draft in some time.
Yeah, I'm excited because anything can happen. And look, again, with the way anything can happen, teams might get a little bit more antsy to trade up and get their guy, or they might feel a little bit more passive to wait because they think their guy's going to fall to them. I think one thing to look out for, Jalen Milroe might go higher than either of us have him right now.
I agree.
I think it's important that the comparison we're bringing to Lamar Jackson is going to creep further and further into the minds of NFL GMs on draft night. And I think we could potentially see a situation where instead of saying, I'm going to sit around and wait, and I'm going to be the next Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to take the next Lamar Jackson, somebody might say, I'm at 14. I want a quarterback. Give me Lamar Jackson now. Or give me the next Lamar Jackson now. Why wait for Jalen Milroe? Why not be the smart people who took him now? And it could happen. I'm not saying it will, but I'm saying the more we talk about it and the more people start to think about it, the more somebody might try to get ahead of the curve and make that pick, that home run pick, before it's expected to happen.
So that brings me up to my next question I ask you. At the end of each mock draft, I always ask you this. Who is your favorite player in this year's NFL draft?
Oh, man, it's hard to say. I like Ashton Jeanty, but for the sake of fun, I won't say Ashton Jeanty's my favorite player, even though he is. I really think my favorite player right now might be Jalen Walker, just because, sure, there's still work to be done, but he offers so much with how versatile he is on defense that I think it's going to be hard for teams looking in that linebacker or defensive line area to not think, do we get him? Because he just brings that kind of versatility, and he is such a big game changer. I mean, it was a huge move for Notre Dame to be able to shut him down in the college football playoff, allow that offense to run. That's how much of a game changer it is when he's not getting in. You saw the negative effects that it had on the Georgia defense. I think he's a guy that a lot of people are going to be looking at because he can do so much, and there's so much ceiling.
I like it a lot. Obviously, I said my favorite defensive player in Malachi Starks. I think he's just going to be a great player for him. Notice how we both have Georgia defensive players. They turn out to be pretty good at the NFL level, if I do say so myself.
Usually.
Yeah, I hear they're really good. But I'd be lying to you if I didn't say my number one player is Cam Skattebo, which is why I have the Steelers picking up a second-round pick so they can pick Cam Skattebo in the second round. I want Cam Skattebo to be the Pittsburgh Steelers running back. You want a power running back who can hang on that football and be tough with it? Cam Skattebo. I want it to be known to everyone right now that if the Steelers get Cam Skattebo, I will be buying a Cam Skattebo jersey as soon as they become available. I don't care if we cut him after 2 or 3 years. I don't care. I'm getting a jersey. It's the end of the story. Whoever gets him is going to get a stud, which is another one that if the Raiders don't go Ashton Jeanty at 6, Cam Skattebo would be a lot of fun on the Raiders, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, just trying to give you different reasons for, not Ashton Jeanty going to the Raiders at 6.
Hopefully. I know I'm going to be disappointed when he comes out and grabs that Raider jersey. I just know it.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. Obviously, NBA playoffs have started. We made our picks. They're on Instagram. Go give them a follow. Some of them are looking good. Some of them are not looking good. Mainly my Clippers pick. I don't want to talk about game one.
Yeah.
Um, that major choke, just major choke. That's all I'll say there. But next week, we plan to have our NFL draft recap like we always do, as well as depending on how the NBA playoffs are going, we might have one recapping the first round, getting you ready for the second round. Games tonight, even in the NBA, some good ones. Clippers and Nuggets game two, I believe, is tonight as well. So fun all around, Austin. NFL draft, NBA playoffs going on, and Cubs are playing some wild games. I saw that Arizona Diamondbacks game a little bit ago.
Yeah, Cubs are playing good baseball. Boy, oh boy. The some pitching needs to be addressed, especially with Justin Steele out for the season now. So, look, a lot of positives for the Chicago Cubs. I think a lot of guys with their bats have stepped up. It's time to find some pitchers who are ready to step up or trade for some.
Yeah. Cardinals, just no, no. I remember everyone telling me, "Hey, Cardinals are going to be really good because they beat the Twins and the Angels to start the year." And I'm like, "Are you telling me that beating the Twins and Angels is a good thing right now?" No.
Yeah, that shouldn't
Yeah.
be the benchmark for what makes a good team.
If it is, then Lord knows I don't know baseball then.
Yeah.
But that's going to do it for us for this episode. Enjoy the NFL draft. Have fun. And also watch NBA playoffs. We'll have all that for you next week. But that is Austin Hill. I'm Austin Wader. And we want to thank you for watching.